Alright guys, kind of a short one today. The way that this map worked out, it just made the most sense for me to go up path 5 in section 2, where there was both a Thing and a Nova, and I'm kind of our resident MODOK slayer on the Brute Force Limber Mini, and in bringing the champions that I needed to take those, it just kind of worked out that those were almost all the fights that I took. The exception, of course, being this first Captain Marvel here. So part of me wanted to take this node with Tigra because honestly, Captain Marvel's kind of a gimme with any Mystic almost anywhere. But the thing is that taking her with Tigra probably would have meant blocking to bait out some heavies, and that meant taking some damage when I knew that with Doom I was going to take none. A lot of people like to avoid feeding her those binary charges by doing energy damage to her. I like to lean wholly into it with Mystics. As you can see, that fight was over absurdly quickly. I only had to bait out a single L1 between the shocks and the incinerates. It's the easiest fight in the world. Just hit her a few times and wait for her to die. So here we have this thing on Ebb and Flow Intercept, as you can see. This can be kind of a tricky node, but the thing about Tigra's unblockable specials, especially her L2, is that they're actually pretty easy to intercept with. And as I've said before, I consider her basic animations to be pretty conducive to intercepts as well. So combine that with the fact that she can do a lot of damage quickly to Thing without triggering the Protect Global or running into his personal protection, and she's an excellent counter here. The main drawback is that this is Sadist, so I will be taking significantly more block damage than I would on other nodes, which is part of why I didn't use her against Captain Marvel, because I know that this is going to be most of what I use her for. As I have said before, most important thing to keep in mind when using Tigra against Thing is that you do not want him to be at exactly 15 rock stacks unless he has a bar of power. Because if he is at 15, then your first hit will actually trigger the Unstoppable before Neutralize is able to turn off his buffs. And that's part of why I'm not hitting into his block there to try and bait that special, because that 2-hit medium would have put him at exactly 15, and I didn't really want to do that. That's also why right there, I actually parried that and then used a combo instead of a heavy, because I wanted him to be at a weird rock stack count instead of at either 12 or 15. See, here he's at 15 and below a bar of power, but that's why I threw that special, because I knew that if I timed it right, I actually wasn't even going for the intercept, but I was trying to time it before Neutralize was gone, so that it would hit him and apply another Neutralize, sending him over 15. A small risk, but I considered it a calculated one because I considered it actually less risky than hitting into his block to take him all the way up to the next bar of power. It's fun to use heavies with Tigra, but against Thing, I actually do like to weave in the combos to maintain kind of a negative control over his rock stacks. You actually want to almost, what would be considered managing them poorly with anyone else is what you want to do with her to keep him off kilter and to keep your advantage over him. And then as you saw, I just intercepted with the L2s in a few places, dropped the protection node, got the Fury from it, and she just rinses him. That was even without power back boosts, because I don't think we've seen them in the store for a while, and I only have one left. And as close as this war was, if I thought I needed it, I would have used it, but I was very confident that I did not need it. So I guess I have that for another one, if maybe I get magic on a mini or something. Anyway, on to the Nova fight. So I gotta admit, nothing would make me happier than to use Tigra for this fight too, even though I would have to heal her up. But because this has Redoubled Determination, and Tigra applies a lot of debuffs, using her in this particular matchup, as good as she is against Nova in a vacuum, would be an extremely bad idea. So even though he's a 5-star, we're going to use Old Reliable and Doom. I don't think I've actually used Doom at all this season before this war, and I'm not sure I used him much last season either. But, he's famous for a reason. He's really, really good at controlling certain fights, and this is absolutely one of them. I mean, I got that intercept there, but you don't really need it. The point of Doom in this fight is to try and control Nova's Furies so that you don't have to worry about him auto-blocking you, and to control his power so that that Redoubled Determination node doesn't mean you wind up eating his special 3. You probably can eat one or two of them, depending on how many debuffs he has up feeding into Redoubled Determination. But, it's always better to win a fight without eating a special 3 if you can. So as you see, I did get an intercept off there, which I knew was safe because he didn't have his Furies, he didn't have any of his Nova charges, because I'd been managing that. I got off the intercept, got the boosted L3, built right back up to another L3, and now I'm going to have those double Furies, which is, of course, so much fun with Doom. I admit I got a little tired of him when I ran several Abyss paths in a row with him, but at times like this, he's kind of fun. I actually do have a 6-star Doom, just need to finish off my next Mystic Cat and I'll get him up. The reason I don't use him in war that often is because my battle group has like 6 or 7 other rank 3 Dooms, as do most battle groups in alliances that are trying to gun for Master these days. So you just don't use the 5-stars that much. The exception being when they'll serve the purpose, as this one clearly will, and you need something else, like my Tigra on the node before. So the deaths I've seen on this node, when he actually does get his unblockable, that can cause it, but that's why I just backed off. You gotta have your evades down, and it's simple. Skipping ahead to the MODOK, you guys have seen this fight before. I have cleaned it up recently, but there's actually going to be a spot in here where I swear I dashed back and Killmonger's just not going to. So enjoy that when it happens. But other than that, like I have talked about before, I actually intentionally trigger his auto block because it gives him a bar of power, sends him to his L1 sooner, and therefore allows me to get True Strike up sooner and get this fight under control that much faster. It's a pretty simple fight. Killmonger is, in my opinion, see, there it is. Killmonger is, in my opinion, the single best counter for this, but he's definitely one of the top 2 or 3, right? That's kind of beyond doubt. Even eating that heavy and a fair amount of brute force degen because it threw me off my rhythm, still at 2/3 health. MODOK's closing in on half. We're only a minute down, even with an interruption. I don't feel like I need to say anything more about this fight at this point. You guys have seen it enough. I will say on the subject of Killmonger just being a total beast, I am compiling some footage of some of the best uses for him in 7.2 and some other places, and that will definitely be coming out as soon as I can get it together. Back to the subject of war, this was a painfully close one. We'd faced Space Bastards before. We knew they were solid. They were actually our first war of this season. They have a weird number of repeats. But we knew that we, had to do well against them, and we did. I've talked about how SSx has had some issues with consistency, at least to the level that we want consistency this season. My battle group got another 164. The Alliance overall only died 4 times, which is much more in line with what we aim for. Unfortunately, SpBa also had one of their best wars of the season, and also died 4 times. So that's a tie. For those of you who haven't run into one yet, that means that both of us get the points that we would get from a loss towards our season totals. Pretty big bummer, especially on top of the fact that because they were actually in Tier 2, and the random map selection picked the Tier 2 map, even though all of the nodes are identical, the Tier 2 map awards fewer points than the Tier 1 map, and so we got fewer points for fighting the same war than some other people in Tier 1 did because of a coin toss. I've not talked much about my thoughts on the current state of war because I actually am still having fun overall. But certain things about the scoring like that, man, it's just... Nobody would design a sport with those kind of weird incentives and with that much left up to random chance and call it a skill-based competitive game mode. Whatever they come up with over this next month to address, the staleness of war, I hope it also includes some fixes to the scoring, because no matter what they do, at the end of the day, we want a system where we can feel like if we put in our all and perform well, that the results will reflect that. So, enough of the soapbox. We'll see what Kabam comes up with at the end of this next offseason. Till next time.